Think about last night. You were lying in bed. You remember the cold side of the pillow. You remember the distant hum of traffic or the sound of your own breathing. You looked at the clock. It was 11:14 p.m. Then, you blinked your eyes for what felt like a second, and suddenly, the room was flooded with sunlight. It's 7 a.m. You didn't just blink. You vanished. There is a hole in your life, a missing piece of time that happens every single night, yet you have absolutely no record of it. Why can't you remember the exact moment you fell asleep? It's one of the most universal experiences of being human, and yet, it's a total blank. Something strange is happening inside your head. Something intentional. We like to think of sleep like a light switch. Flip it, and the lights go out. 1 second you're awake, the next you're gone. But that's not how it works. Not even close. Sleep isn't a cliff you fall off, it's a long, slow slope. Your brain doesn't just turn off. It actually stays incredibly busy. So if your brain is still active, why is the tape recorder empty? Why is there a 10-minute gap in your memory right before you drifted off? If our brains are powerful enough to remember a random song from 10 years ago, why do they fail us during the most important transition of our day? It doesn't make sense. Or maybe, it makes perfect sense. Most people think we forget because we're simply unconscious. We think the recorder stops because the power is cut. If you aren't there, you can't remember being there, right? Not exactly. Here's the problem with that theory. If someone nudges you 2 minutes after you've fallen asleep, you'll likely wake up and insist you weren't even sleeping yet. You were still there, but the memory of those final minutes is already gone. It's not that the power was cut, it's that the data was never saved to the hard drive. To understand why, we have to look at the brain's gatekeeper. Imagine your brain is a massive, high-tech office building. In the center of this building sits a small, walnut-shaped structure called the thalamus. This is the gatekeeper. Every single thing you see, hear, or feel has to pass through the thalamus before it reaches the rest of your brain. It's the relay station. When you're awake, the gatekeeper is wide awake too. It's busy waving in information from your eyes, your ears, and your skin. But as you start to drift, the thalamus starts to get sleepy. It begins to close the heavy iron gates. This is the first step. The thalamus starts to block out the world. This is why you don't notice the sound of the heater or the feeling of the blanket anymore. You're still awake, but the outside is being filtered out. But there's a second player in this game, and this one is the real culprit. Meet the hippocampus. If the thalamus is the gatekeeper, the hippocampus is the office clerk in charge of filing. Its only job is to take your short-term thoughts and turn them into long-term memories. It's the save button on your computer. This is where the science gets fascinating. Dr. Robert Stickgold, a professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and a world-renowned sleep expert, has spent decades studying this exact phenomenon. In his research, Stickgold found that our brains aren't just shutting down. Stickgold discovered that the hippocampus is one of the very first parts of the brain to go on break. In fact, it often clocks out 5 to 10 minutes before you actually lose consciousness. Think about that. You are still technically awake. Your eyes might even be open. You are thinking, dreaming, and drifting. But the clerk has already left the building. The save button is broken. Anything you think or experience in those final 10 minutes is written in disappearing ink. It never gets moved to permanent storage. Stickgold's work suggests this isn't an accident. It's a biological protocol. This is what scientists call sleep-onset amnesia. It's a temporary, localized form of memory loss that happens to every human, every night. We are essentially living through a 10-minute blackout while we are still conscious. It's like a movie where the editor decided to cut the last scene of every act. You see the setup, you see the climax, but you never see the resolution. Wait, why would the brain do this? Why be so inefficient? It turns out there's a very practical reason. Imagine if you remembered every single microsecond of falling asleep. Every heavy eyelid, every wandering nonsensical thought, every weird twitch your body makes as it relaxes. It would be a mountain of useless data. Your brain is a master of curation. It doesn't want to clutter your archives with the boring transition footage. It wants the highlights. But there's more to it than just house cleaning. Brain scans have revealed that the brain shuts down in layers. It's not all at once. The deep, ancient structures of the brain, the parts that handle your heartbeat and your basic survival, fall asleep first. They sink into the darkness. Meanwhile, the outer layer, the cortex, the part that handles your logic and complex thought, stays active for a bit longer. This creates a strange, half-asleep state. You're in a limbo between worlds. In one experiment at Harvard, Stickgold and his team monitored participants as they began to drift off. They found that even when people were having vivid, dreamlike thoughts, they couldn't recall them if they were woken up just minutes later. Their brains were functioning, but their memory centers were already dark. They were experiencing a reality that their future selves would never know existed. Think about the implications of that. If your brain can hide something as familiar as falling asleep, what else is it filtering out? We trust our memories to tell us the story of our lives. We think of them as a continuous video, but in reality, our memories are more like a series of Polaroids with massive gaps in between. Our brain is constantly editing, deleting, and rearranging the truth to make the story feel smoother. The moment you fall asleep is just the most obvious edit. Actually, it's a mercy. That transition period, the hypnagogic state, is often filled with hallucinations. You might hear your name being called, see flashes of light, or feel like you're falling. If we remembered these clearly every morning, we'd probably think we were losing our minds. The brain shuts off the recorder to protect us from the chaos of the transition. It waits until the system is stable and the dream world is fully loaded before it starts the recording again. It's kind of strange, right? We spend our whole lives trying to be present and remember the moment, yet the brain's default setting is to make us forget. It's a reminder that we aren't really the ones in control. We are just passengers in a very complex machine that has its own protocols. The machine knows that for the conscious you to rest, the recording you has to die for a little while. Every night, you lay your head down and prepare to disappear. You trust that the you who wakes up tomorrow will be the same you who closed their eyes tonight. But you have no proof. You don't have the footage. You have a 10-minute gap where the self simply dissolved into nothingness. Tonight, when you climb into bed, try to catch it. Try to notice the exact second the world fades away. You'll feel the weight of your limbs. You'll hear the quiet of the room. You might even feel that first drifting thought that doesn't quite make sense. But you won't catch it. The gatekeeper will close the door. The clerk will walk out the back exit, and you will vanish. But don't worry. It's not a failure of your mind, it's a feature. Your brain is clearing the stage for the next act. As Dr. Stickgold's research reminds us, memory isn't just about what we keep, it's about what we are willing to let go of. Some moments aren't meant to be stored, they are just meant to be felt, and then lost forever in the quiet space between being awake and being gone. Tonight, it will happen again. You'll look at the clock, you'll blink, and then it will be tomorrow, and you'll never know what you missed. Maybe that's the real mystery. The strange part wasn't the sleep itself. It was the fact that we're okay with disappearing every single night without leaving a trace. See you in the morning. Or maybe you won't even remember this.